So thanks once again for dropping by the channel. If you like the content, if you're new to the channel, please hit subscribe, share the video if you enjoyed it, if you felt it was useful. I also do have a Patreon, the link will be in the description. Now let's get into this. So Lyndon Arthur defeats Dex Spelman, 12 round unanimous decision. He retains his Commonwealth title, and if all things go well, and what I mean by that is if we don't get any more reschedulings of the Dubois-Joyce card, looks set to take on Anthony Yarde come the end of October. Now, Lyndon Arthur, obviously he was meant to take on Anthony Yarde originally when the Dubois-Joyce card was on in April. Obviously we know that, we obviously know what happened. But Lyndon Arthur, I've had a look at him in a couple of his fights, and against this guy Dex Spelman. Now Spelman, who I've seen a couple of times, I've seen him on a few, I think I've seen him on one Matchroom show, wasn't overly impressed with him, and that was in a winning effort, he won that fight, but he looked very raw. He even back then, this was a couple of years ago when I seen him first, he was someone I noticed who had a very poor defense. He just didn't really move. He just threw a lot of punches and didn't really, there was nothing sophisticated about him. So when this fight was announced, I thought, okay, well, it's a step up from who Lyndon Arthur has been fighting, but it's not a great step up, but it's certainly not going to get. Dex Spelman is not an Anthony Yarde. He's nothing close to it. So watching this fight, the first round, we saw Lyndon Arthur just, and this was the kind of pattern of fight. It was not the most entertaining fight in the world to watch, truth be told, but Lyndon Arthur, he just used his jab, just boxing the back foot. He just moved. Whenever Spelman, his whole game plan was to try and outwork Lyndon Arthur, and you can see that was his game plan. You know, he was on the front foot, he was trying to get some stuff done, but he just had no head movement. You know, there was nothing sophisticated about what he was doing, and he never appeared to trouble Lyndon Arthur. Lyndon Arthur was very calm, very composed throughout the fight, showed a very good jab, you know. The one thing I really did take from this fight was the size difference. And it was alluded to on commentary that Lyndon Arthur, you know, he takes a good bit of weight off to get down to light heavyweight, and it shows because Dex Spelman's been campaigning at light heavyweight for a couple of years. Now, he looked like a super middleweight in there, and Arthur's looked like a cruiserweight. Literally, that's what it looked like. It looked like a super middleweight versus a cruiserweight. I mean, Spelman looked tiny in there compared to Lyndon Arthur, and obviously Arthur is a lot taller. He's 6'2", where I think Spelman's only 5'10", but even still, just the size of his body in comparison to Spelman just looked crazy. Now Spelman, as I said, he was fighting with his shoulders square, he wasn't moving his head, and when I was watching Lyndon Arthur's, he was just jabbing a lot. It was just a lot of jabs. That's mainly what he was doing. But in around about kind of the 5th or 6th rounds, when he started using the uppercut. And once he started using the uppercut, that's when he really started having some success in there, I should say. Because when you're fighting a guy who's kind of squared up his shoulders a bit, who's not moving his head, and he's got a high guard, lots of it can be hard to get through the guard, although with Spelman it wasn't, just throw an uppercut, because he's going to have very little defense over that. So Lyndon Arthur, that's what he was doing. He was throwing the uppercut in. He was, you know, he was boxing well. He was very composed. That's what I noticed. He was very composed, very calm. You know, it wasn't fought at a frantic pace. You know, Spelman, he wanted to try and outwork Lyndon Arthur, but as I said, he was moving around the ring very well. He was keeping range very well, was Arthur's, controlling it with his jab, throwing some body shots in there. I did get the impression, because Spelman's face from the first round was starting to become a mess. He was swelling after the first round. Started to get a bit of blood there. I did get the impression that with Arthur, if he'd really tried stepping on the gas, he probably could have got Spelman out of there. But his last fight was a 12-rounder, and by all accounts, it was going well until he ended up getting clean. He wasn't hurt bad or anything like that, but he definitely had a scary moment in his last fight, and maybe that was in his mind. Maybe that was just, he was thinking, you know what, I don't need to make this fight any harder than it needs to be. I'll only go for the stoppage if it's right there in front of me. So he was content to just box his way to a 12-round decision. One judge scored the fight 119-109, and the other two had it 116-112, and one judge I think had it 116-113. So two judges had it reasonably close, and one other judge had it wide. This to me was a wide fight for Lyndon Arthur. There wasn't many rounds you could say Spelman won. Maybe the first, and maybe one or two others, but this was clear cut to me. So when I watch Lyndon Arthur, and I just think, okay, he's going to fight Anthony Yarde next, you know, fingers crossed. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. Very different fighter to Dex Spelman, obviously. Yarde's head movement is the first thing. Yarde has very, very, very good head movement. He's just as big, if not bigger, in terms of his body size than Lyndon Artis. Obviously, I don't think he's quite as tall. And definitely he can punch. Or we know that. As Sergey Kovalev, Anthony Yarde can punch. So when these two go at it in the end of October, I'll be looking forward to that. You know, I'm definitely going to favour Anthony Yarde to win that fight. But Lyndon Artis, he's decent. He's a decent fighter. You know, he, as I said, was very impressed. He's got a nice fast jab. He's very relaxed, very composed in there. I would say showed, you know, not to have any stamina problems. But again, he didn't fight this fight at a frantic pace. He didn't let Spelman fight his fight. All right, Spelman ended up fighting Artis' fight, and that was keep it at range, boxing the back foot, while Spelman tried the pressure on the front foot. So, you know, for Artis, it was easy. It was an easy fight. You know, as I said, it was an easy fight to score. It wasn't the most entertaining fight I've seen, truth be told, but you know, it is what it is. They're not all going to be entertaining fights. And as I said, it's a very much a gym atmosphere watching these shows behind closed doors. So I think a lot of fighters do tend to think of it as a bit of a glorified spar. And that was kind of something what we had here tonight. But as I said, he marches on. It'd be interesting to see how Artis and Anthony Yarde go. I'm tired here, people. I'm really, really tired today. So it'll be interesting to see how that fight goes. Let me know your thoughts. Who do you have in that fight if and when it gets made? And the reason I say if is because God only knows if there's no fans in attendance at Dubois Joyce, then that fight's getting moved. So let me know your thoughts down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, of course, if you are new. Leave a comment in the comment section below. And as always, people, I will talk to you.